Like to call agenda Belton City Council public hearing work session and regular meeting February 11th. Right now, at this time, I'd like to call the public hearing to order. This is a public hearing to receive input on proposed annual budget for the fiscal year beginning April 1st, 2020 and ending March 31st, 2021. Please mute your phones at this time too. If anybody's got phones on, I'd like the city manager, please, any new information before we get started, before I start bringing people up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, today we did receive some communications from citizens with some questions. And so Sheila Ernzen, our Assistant City Manager and Finance Director, has some responses to those. So Sheila, would you mind going over those questions with some replies from the city?
Of course. The first questions were received from Susan Huffman, 509 Mark Lane, Belton, Missouri. Her first question was, what is the City of Belton doing to lower the costs for water and sewer rather than increase them? So there are many factors that impact water and sewer rates for Belton customers. The city's current rates reflect substantial investments in increasing water capacity and water pressure for adequate fire protection and improvements to the city's wastewater treatment plant. Proposed rate increases will provide funding to replace aging water infrastructure and continued investment in reducing I&I to our wastewater system. Her second question was, line maintenance, hazard insurance, and telephone increase substantially under wastewater. The sewer line maintenance budget line item was increased to make repairs to the 166th Street Spring Valley sewer main in fiscal year 2021, and the estimated cost to repair the sewer main is $110,000, and that is what increased that line item. A 10% increase in hazard insurance is budgeted annually. The fiscal year 2020 premiums totaled $46,619. We added $4,661.90, that's 10% to the fiscal year 2020 premium amount, and then went ahead and that equaled $51,280.90, and we rounded up to $51,300. And that's how we budget and make sure that we have enough money to pay our insurance premiums for hazard insurance. The telephone budget actually stayed the same as compared to the fiscal year 20 budget. Both fiscal year 20 and fiscal year 21 are budgeted at $25,000. The fiscal year 2020 department estimate is $23,000, so $25,000 seems like a very reasonable estimate for fiscal year 2021. This line item includes funding for on-call staff cell phones, tablets, hotspots, and landlines. Her third question was, the City of Belton 2020 budget does not address the failing sewer systems, which are also beyond their life cycle. Has the city purchased the camera truck budgeted and reviewed the sewer system in the residential areas? So the fiscal year 2020 and fiscal year 2021 wastewater budget does include significant investments to stabilize our stream banks and reduce inflow and infiltration of stormwater into the city's sewer system. The extra I&I impacts our wastewater system because it increases the volume of waste that the sewer treatment plant has to process. The city did purchase a camera truck in October 2019 and is spending a significant amount of time inspecting and reviewing the sewer system throughout the city, including in residential areas. Also, in her third question, she adds, is the city going to continue with emergency repairs as the backups into homes and sinkholes keep happening? And of course, the city will continue making emergency repairs to sewer lines when they're needed. The funding for this is included in the sewer line maintenance budget line item. Sinkhole repairs from collapsing stormwater pipes are funded by the street fund. Sewer fees collected from customers can only be used to maintain the city's sanitary sewer or wastewater system. These fees cannot be used for the city's storm sewer system. So that there's a difference between our storm sewer system and our sanitary sewer system. Also, she asked, is the city of Belton going to continue to allow untreated wastewater to seep into the ground from existing fractured sewer lines? And so the city is investing a significant amount of money into reducing the I&I through sewer line inspections, lining sewer line interceptors, and repairing collapsed pipes. Our sewer lines are not pressurized, and this means that the wastewater flowing through the pipes is not seeping into the ground through cracks in the lines. So it flows through because it's not pressurized, it doesn't actually push it out into the ground. So it's not seeping into the ground. And additionally, she asked, I noticed that the 2021 budget for sewer line maintenance increased from $75,000 to $220,000 for a 193% increase. So the $220,000 for sewer line maintenance includes $110,000 to make repairs to the 166th Spring Valley sewer main and an additional $110,000 for general maintenance and repairs for lines that have failed. She asks in her fourth question, health insurance rates have increased more than 2.6% and retirement has increased more than 1%. Under administration, retirement increased 57.4%, salaries increased 13.9%, and health insurance increased 26.8%. Public works salaries increased 24.6%, health by 53.9%, and retirement by 75.4%. Police health insurance rate increased by 5.4%. There are other examples as well. These were compared using 2019 actual to 2021 proposed. So I need to make sure that everybody understands that the fiscal year 2019 actual expenses take into account savings from employee turnover that actually occurred during fiscal year 2019. When employees leave, there is oftentimes a short time of vacancy in positions as the city goes through the hiring process, saving money on salaries. New employees have a waiting period of approximately 90 days before they are eligible for insurance benefits and 6 months before they are eligible for retirement benefits. Every year, the city's proposed budget includes a full year of salaries and benefits for each approved position. So we are reporting what actually happened, and then we are budgeting and expecting that all of those positions are filled for the entire year to make sure that we have enough money to actually pay those employees that are approved in our budget. Question number 5, has the city of Belton considered that more storefronts do not necessarily mean the right mix that would generate the most sales tax? So the city doesn't get to decide the storefronts that choose to locate in the city. Business owners are private individuals and corporations who make their decisions based on their own criteria and local demand. While the city has welcomed many new businesses to our city in the last few years, the reality is that online sales are significantly reducing the city's available sales tax revenues. And we went ahead and found this graph to kind of show you how that light blue line are in-store sales for department stores, and you can see how e-commerce has well surpassed. So while overall American spending is increasing, you can see that the actual sales in the store are decreasing while online sales continue to increase. And that affects our sales tax revenues because we don't have a use tax in the city of Belton. Now I'd like to, we received another set of questions from Kirby Hall at 503 Madera Circle, Belton, Missouri. And I'd like to read his comments. His first comment was, he was very surprised to learn that cities apparently have the capability to add fees to utility prices. From documents on the city's website, he was able to see that additional fees have been added to water and sewer rates above and beyond what is being charged to Belton by the supplier, Kansas City. And it is true, cities are able to charge the fee amount that will cover the cost of providing the service to users. We actually maintain all of our own infrastructure. We have water towers, we have underground storage tanks, we have our own wastewater treatment plant, and we also have to maintain all of the distribution system, pumping stations, things like that. And so the fee that is charged to customers is allowed to cover the cost of providing that service to them. Number 2, our rates for combined water and sewer services are substantially higher than either of our 2 closest neighbors, Raymore and Grandview. So the City of Belton's fees for water and sewer are based on the cost of us providing services to our customers. The City of Belton has recently made substantial investments to increase water capacity and water pressure for adequate fire protection, and has also made significant improvements to the city's wastewater treatment plant. The proposed rate increase to water will provide funding to replace aging water infrastructure, replacing asbestos and cast iron pipe. Also, Belton is a much older community than our neighboring communities. And Alexa?
Yeah. When I looked back at information today, because I too have been asked by multiple citizens, why is Raymore so much less? If you take a look at the census, in 1990, the census for Raymore, they had about 5,500 residents. Their proposed population right now is 22,000. So as you've seen that growth that's occurred there, that's all new housing. So you'll recall when we showed what our infrastructure looks like, our infrastructure is 70 and 80 years old. That they don't have that type of infrastructure. Their infrastructure is all the newer PVC pipe that has a 100-year lifespan. So they're not having to go through and provide that type of infrastructure maintenance because they're in a new community.
The third comment, I have seen in documents on your website that the reserve in the water and/or sewer account is at or above $2 million. So the water and wastewater funds each have less than 3 months of operating expenses in reserve that are available for spending. The wastewater fund is expected to have a cash carryover of $8.1 million to begin fiscal year 21. Only $1.1 million of that is not allocated and can be used in case of an emergency or natural disaster on sewer costs. 3 months of operating expenses would be $1.3 million. $2.9 million of that cash carryover is restricted for debt service. The debt service portion of people's water bills that they pay is restricted and can only be used to pay principal and interest on the city's sewer debt service for the sewer portion, and only on water principal and interest payments on the water portion.
And as you'll recall, and Sheila, I'm going to interject here, that debt service came from a vote to the citizens when we talk about that we have capacity. And the council will recall that at the last meeting we talked about in 2012, we were looking at the water infrastructure of the community and needed to take a look at what not only our capacity and our infrastructure, but a possible second water source. So when we look at that, what came from 2012 was a bond issuance to add the second water tower and the underground water tank in order to be able to ensure that as we grow and expand, we have the water capacity so that when somebody turns on their faucet, they're not limited, that they have the water that they need. And then the same goes for our wastewater. At our wastewater plant, we did improvements of about $12 million, a little more than that, to meet EPA requirements for our wastewater system. So when we've done that, and that was done and completed about 1.5 years ago for the wastewater plant. So as we're looking at those bond issuances that went to the community, those dollars were spent to make those improvements for those systems.
And additionally, the wastewater fund of that $8.1 million has $4.1 million that's restricted for capital outlay and equipment replacement. And so we have an equipment replacement plan to replace our pumps, to replace our meters, and to replace our vehicles and equipment so that we are not having to increase rates and do big rate increases. And so $4.1 million has been saved to make those large capital improvement amounts, and that money is restricted for those items. The water fund is expected to have a cash carryover of $6.5 million to begin fiscal year '21, and only $1.1 million is not allocated and would be available to be used in case of an emergency or natural disaster on water costs. 3 months of operating expenses is $1.4 million. $4.2 million of that is restricted for debt service. $1.2 million is restricted for capital outlay and equipment replacement. Comment number 4 was, I would have expected that replacement of aging water and or sewer infrastructure would be accomplished with funds generated from bond sales, since these improvements have such a long lifespan. Although I admit that I do not know if the city has reached its bonding capacity. The city has reached its bonding capacity for general obligation debt. We have revenue bonds that are outstanding in our water and our wastewater fund. So those loans and that debt does not go against our general obligation debt capacity. But the city did issue debt to make improvements to the wastewater treatment plant and to build a water tower and underground water storage tank, plus make other improvements to our system. And $17.63 of every water and sewer bill goes to pay the principal and interest on these debt issues. Comment number 5. Over the years, I have observed regulatory agencies overseeing utility companies, such as Evergy and its predecessor KCP&L, seeking rate increases. I naively assumed that such oversight covered water as well, because water is even more crucial to life support than electricity. Hence, the city's ability to increase fees for water and sewer services simply by a majority vote of 9 elected representatives surprised me. So it's true that we don't have a regulatory agency, but our state law requires that utility rates must be based on the actual cost of providing the services to users. So we are not allowed to increase costs more than we're having to pay to provide those services. Item number 6, I would like to see the actual costs charged by Kansas City for water in each of the past 5 fiscal years. Additionally, I would like to see the revenues received from water and sewer payments received in each of those years. Then I would like to see an accounting of the expenditures of the revenues in excess of the costs associated with water and sewer accounts for these 5 years. So I received this email after it was sent at 4:41 p.m. today, so I did not have time to pull all that together, but all that information can be found on the city's website by looking at the city's budget. So there are 6 columns in every budget. The first 2 columns are the previous 2 fiscal years' actual costs. And so if anyone is interested in looking at that information, all of our budgets are on our website, and you can actually go in and see the actual amounts and the line item detail, and you can just continue going back to previous budgets to be able to see fiscal years further back. Question or comment number 7, regarding the costs associated with consulting fees, $50,000, and transition costs, $170,000, associated with hiring an appointed police chief, I was again surprised. These appear high to me, especially the transition costs. I have reached out to the Human Resources Director in a Midwestern community out of state regarding the costs associated with their search for a police chief in the past few years. This community is roughly 10,000 people larger in population than Belton. When I receive that information, expected soon, I will share it with you. I just want to clarify that the $50,000 is for is what we're estimating for consulting fees, and the $170,000 includes salary and benefits for a full year of what we anticipate that we're going to have to pay the new appointed police chief. The salary is budgeted at $117,000 and benefits are $53,000. And to close, I appreciate the opportunity to share my thoughts. I must admit that if I were looking to locate in the southern portion of the metro area, the cost of water and sewer would concern me. Attached is information I prepared and shared with the homeowners in our subdivision, and that included a projection of what water and sewer rates would be at the end of 5 years.
Okay, with that, you have any other comments?
No, we can open up for public.
Let's open for public comments. Please keep it to 5 minutes. Anybody that wants to approach the podium, give us your name and address and your questions, and give time.
My name is Brett White, 608 Mallory Drive, Belton, Missouri, 64012. I just have a question for clarification. When I was here in January and sitting back in that seat back there, they were going over the sewer budget. And Mr. Clark was the only one that raised some concerns. We were told at that meeting that the sewer was going to raise 12.5% because that was what we were going to be charged for the sewer. Now I'm hearing that the reason for the sewer increase is because of the needing to fix and repair. Well, that's two separate things. So I'd like to know the facts, because if the sewers increase is because we have to fix, that's a different story than what we are being charged. But what we were told at that meeting, because I was sitting back there, was that the 12.5% for sewer was strictly about what we were being charged. And now it's changed on us. It's all now about repair. So that's the only thing I have. So
You want to stay up for a second in case there's a question back from staff?
Our city ordinance, the 12.5% is the increase that we are receiving from Little Blue Valley Sewer District. Our ordinances state that we will increase the bill no less than the amount, increase our rates no less than the amount that we receive of the increase we receive from our third-party providers. For water, that is Kansas City, Missouri, and for sewer, it is Little Blue Valley.
So how can we say in one moment that the increase, the 12.5% for sewer, is what we're being charged, and then in this other moment say it's about being able to have money to pay for the sewer?
It's the,
You can't have 12.5% from saying we're going to do it with two different things when it's, and that's the confusion.
yes.
And and then if it is what we're being charged, can we see the actual invoice where they've said they're going to increase us by 12.5%?
Yes.
Would you put that on the website so the city can see?
Yes.
Okay.
So just to clear this up, the 12.5% is the Little Blue Valley Sewer District's increase. The 4% of the 14% proposed water increase is what we anticipate being passed on from Kansas City, Missouri. There is another component to the water rate increase, 10%, that is for additional infrastructure replacement of our cast iron and our asbestos cement water pipes. And so I think the first citizen that I read, Ms. Huffman's comments, she was very focused on the sewer fund. I think most citizens are interested in the water fund. And the water rate increase is made up of two components. 10%, that is going to be to replace our cast iron and asbestos cement pipes, and 4% is the estimated increase from Kansas City, Missouri.
When will we know that?
At the end, we expect that Kansas City will have finalized their rates by the end of February, and so that will come back to council for second reading the very first meeting in March.
Councilman Savage.
Sheila, go ahead and explain. I know you probably wore it out quite a bit last meeting, but go ahead and explain why Little Blue is increasing, and a little bit about when they come up and told us so, and told us what was gonna be happening. Explain a little bit of that, I think it's important.
Little Blue Sewer District has been making significant improvements in their own sewer wastewater system, and those have been passed on to all of their customers.
They were up here, what, 2 years ago, roughly?
Maybe 3 or 4 years ago at
And
this
give
point.
us
Yes.
a wide berth in respect to expecting it. This was not secretive or vindictive. It was going, hey, we gotta do something, and here's kind of what's gonna happen. That's what I wanted to say
Yes.
as well. Thank you.
Excuse me one second, you had a question?
I just wanted to ask questions on what Councilman Savage was saying. Do we not have a representative from our city on the Little Blue board? Because it's a board that governs the Little Blue sewer, isn't it?
True, we don't actually have a board member, we have a liaison that is on the Little Blue. The mayor is one of the liaisons, and then from operations side, we have our wastewater supervisor attends.
Okay, I just didn't know if we had someone that went to the board meetings all the time that was involved. My next question is just, half the city goes a Little Blue, and I know we said we got to increase something down there, but I didn't know if we need to take the full 12.5%, and that's my comments about just because half the city, we do the sewer, and the other half goes a Little Blue, and they're taking a 12.5. Do we need to take a full 12.5 is my question.
All of our rates we don't charge residents that are in the Little Blue Valley sewer basin different than we charge our residents that are not in that Little Blue sewer basin. The 12.5% rate increase for our part is then able to be used to reduce I&I, which is creating not only a strain on our own wastewater treatment plant, but it's also adding to the metered sewage that is going to Little Blue, and it helps increase our rates, because not only is it based on their rate increases, but it's also based on our rates are based on the amount of flow that is going into Little Blue.
And you are? Hi, doctor. Okay.
You know, I'm Kirby Hall, and Sheila read a lot of my comments and questions built in there too. One of the things too, I have received information back from the Human Resources Director, and I'll tell you where it is. It's Inver Heights. Let's see. It's Inver Heights. It's in Minnesota, outside of Minneapolis, about 35,000 people. And when they search for a police chief, their RFP is visible online, and it's quite impressive in terms of they did the recruiting and the vetting and everything else. They spent about $25,000 in that process, and I even have the name of the contact person that they used with the firm and everything else up there. But I am concerned about. I know you can look at the online information and you can see charges and you can see revenues, but I want to be able to track where those dollars go. And to me, it seems like some of them that we're paying for water or sewer are getting outside into other areas, and that concerns me. And that's about all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hall.
Mr. Mayor,
Sir.
just to reply to the concern about the cost of the consultant, I actually put that in my budget request to go about finding the next police chief. Felt that it was important when the citizens voted to go to an appointed police chief. One of the reasons they said they wanted to do that was so they could have a nationwide search to find the most qualified candidate to move forward for the police department. I also sit on the state board for 911. I chair the state 911 board. We also have recently gone about the process of looking for a state 911 director. The same type of nationwide search is being done. We did go through an RFP process. We did hire a consulting firm. That firm's costing $56,000 to do that. I put this figure in my budget request. If it ends up being $15,000, that's great. If it ends up being $50,000, I wanted to make sure that we had enough money at least budgeted to cover that expense to go about that search.
Thank you.
This is just the budget process. It's not the actual RFP and hiring a firm yet.
And Sheila, would you also please expand that dollars that the rates for our water and our sewer, that those dollars that come, they have to be spent on water, and then for wastewater and sewer, it has to be spent there, and how that's required by law?
Yes, so the water fund, any fees that are collected from users of the water system, and they have to be used only for water distribution. They cannot be used for streets. They cannot be used for police. They can't be used for fire. Any funds that are paid by users, by customers of the water department, if they're for water and they're broken up on your bill because those fees actually when they are paid, they are deposited into the water fund. They cannot be used for anything other than the water fund. The same with the sewer fund. Any amounts that are paid by customers for sewer, they go into the sewer fund, and by law, they are restricted to only be used for the sewer system.
Councilman Savage?
Sheila, I'm gonna keep bugging. You went through it some, but, so you got a bond issue, you've got various funds. We know that it goes into the water fund, we know it goes into the sewer fund. Break it down a little bit for us, will you please? At least more items, you don't have to use dollars. You got a bond issue that's part of the water fund.
Yes, and I think there's a lot of confusion out there right now. People are confused about the storm water
That's separate.
bond issue. It's separate. We issued bond voters approved it in April. We issued a bond in October for stormwater improvements for the stormwater sewer system. Those bond proceeds can only be used to repair the stormwater sewer system, not the sanitary wastewater system. The fees that come in or loans that are made for the sewer system, only sewer user fees can be used to pay those costs. And also the street bonds that were issued for street improvements, those funds can only be used on street improvements. The only funds that the city has that are not restricted for a specific purpose are general fund revenues. And almost 2/3 of the general fund is dedicated to public safety. And so most of that money, the general fund revenues, go to pay for police and fire services, also the municipal court, also the city clerk, IT, some administration costs, things like that. But general fund would be the only funds that would be available to be shared with another fund. Every other fund has restricted dollars, and that's why they're separated and segregated out into their own little part in the budget.
Sheila, you've got in the water, if I may go ahead, Mayor, thank you. I've seen it a lot, I've been here a long time, but you gotta pay for the water, you gotta pay for the bond issue. Just taking water now, just water. We're taking meter replacement, vehicle repair, vehicle a replacement. You've got, that's what I want to see broke down, just a little bit in items. I don't need the numbers.
Oh, so are you talking about the cash carryover that we have at the
No, I'm
beginning, or
just talking about the
About
things,
general
when the
items.
water bill gets paid, these are the items that it goes to, and
Yeah.
they're allocated such to,
Okay.
as well as budgeted such to, and I also want to go ahead and expand on the fact that the toughest thing for me up here, I've operated under a profit margin, and that's how I'm known. It has been extremely tough to operate with zero profit. We've got to have exact cost, exact expense, and enough to operate 3 months. That's what we're allowed. That's all we operate on. You make a mistake on your actual budget planning, guess what? You're in trouble. That's the kind of thing that I'm trying to get known a little bit. It's a tough deal.
So the water system and the wastewater system have their own employees that go out and work and repair. So we have salaries and benefits for our employees that are working to maintain and repair the system. We're paying for maintenance for pump stations, for the water towers, for water meters. We're paying for equipment repairs. We're paying for equipment rental. We're paying for building maintenance. We're paying for collection agency fees to collect delinquent accounts. We're paying for printing the bills. We're paying for telephone utilities. We're paying for vehicle accessories and safety equipment. We're paying for fire hydrants, for valves and fittings, for meters, pits, and covers. We're paying for our operating expenses for the water fund are $5,690,000, and that includes what we pay to Kansas City, Missouri. And then our capital outlay that we have budgeted for fiscal year 2021 is $2,100,000, and our debt service is $4,748,000, but $4.1 million of that is the debt service fee that can only be spent on debt service, and we are adding that into the budget to make sure that we don't spend those restricted dollars on the operating expenses or on capital outlay.
Thank you. I think that was necessary.
Yes, go ahead, Boyce, coming up.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just had a constituent ask me why, when we were doing the bond issue, why we didn't throw the water lines included in that bond issue. I know stormwater and streets are separate, but why didn't we do a stormwater, streets, and water line bond issue all at one time instead of doing it through, just had a levy increase instead of doing it through the water bills?
At least as, I don't know if I can say we have never used general obligation bonds to fund wastewater or water system improvements. I don't know if that's true. I know it has not happened as long as I have been here, and there is no general obligation debt for the water or the wastewater system. And the reason is because those are enterprise funds, and enterprise funds are supposed to support and pay for all of those costs with user fees. General obligation debt is paid for with a property tax levy. And property tax levy, the taxes are not supposed to go to support the water and the wastewater system or the trash fund, because those funds are enterprise funds and they are supposed to be self-sustaining and to be completely paid for through user fees.
Good. Sir, name, address?
Ben Furman, 909 Winesap Court. So 2 questions. The first question that the lady asked that you had reviewed, her first question was, what is the city doing to reduce the water bill? And that wasn't answered. We talked about why we're having to increase it, but there's been no discussion on what the city is doing and looking into to try and reduce our water bill, because in the 7 years I've lived here, all I've seen is my water bill increase. So it doesn't seem like the city is doing anything to look at ways to reduce my water bill. One thing that, you said that is a cost that I could see as a reduction is it's 2020. How many of you receive electronic bills for everything? Yeah, we can't get an electronic bill for water, and so we're spending how much money printing out and mailing water bills? The only bill I get in the mail is my water bill. Everything else is online. I can go and pay it online, but I still get sent a water bill on paper that you can't send it to me electronically, which I would assume would reduce cost overall for the city because you're not having to spend postage, you're not having to spend paper, ink, and all of those things. So that's a question that I would like to see answered is, what is the city doing to reduce the water bill? Because all I hear is, we have to increase because. There's nothing saying, hey, here's what we're doing to try and reduce it, and that's what I'd like to know.
Those are great points. So our software system that we currently have does not allow the capability of emailing and sending electronic water bills. Actually, tonight, later in the budget work session, we'll be talking about a transfer from the capital improvement sales tax fund to look at buying a new financial accounting and utility billing software. That software is extremely expensive. It's $700,000. And so hopefully, there's money in that capital improvement sales tax fund that will create efficiencies and conveniences for all of our citizens if we're able to have that approved in the budget. So we are looking at items. The other thing that we're doing is we're looking to do pay-as-you-go infrastructure replacement, because the reality is that our infrastructure is nearing the end of its useful life, and 90% of our water main breaks in the last 5 years have been from that cast iron and water pipe. And whenever there are water main breaks, it costs more money because we're doing it on an emergency basis. So we're paying overtime. We're also having to pay to repair any damaged utilities and damaged infrastructure that high pressurized water has broken when the water main breaks. And we're hoping that doing a slow, steady, pay-as-you-go planned approach instead of having to respond and replace things on an emergency basis will end up saving citizens money over the long run. That is the hope.
The other part I think that's important to note is that, like a couple of years ago, part of the fee structure on the rate structure actually went down a little bit because we were able to reduce our debt service amount. And so as that occurs and as those debt is paid off, you will see the rates come down. So those are the things that we are doing to see what we can do about reducing the cost, is that as soon as it's eligible and that debt is paid, we then reduce it so that, because we can't continue to charge that. It's required by law that it be reduced. So we did that 2 years ago, 3 years ago?
Yes, we did wastewater, I think, 3 years ago, and water 2 years ago.
Councilman Clark.
I want to expand on the gentleman's question. Maybe I didn't understand you. So, my business, I have it come out of my checking account every month. You send me a water bill, I never open it. Is there a way for me to go online and check that? You're saying no or yes?
You can go online and check it. He was asking if instead of mailing out the bill, we could deliver it electronically.
That's why can I opt out of getting a bill if it's electronic, or I can go online and check it out?
Our system it's a very old, it's from pre-2000, pre-Y2K. They actually switched to it in order to prepare for the year 2000. So it's 20 years old, and it just does not have that capability.
And so we reduced our water rates when?
We reduced our wastewater and water rates, the debt service part, 3 years ago and 2 years ago respectively.
Did we let everybody know that we were reducing them?
We talked about it in our budget meetings. So the information was public, and then we did discuss it.
Okay, thank you. Yes, ma'am.
My name's Stephanie Furman, same address. I'm a numbers person. I pay all my bills. I meticulously go through everything, so I'm not very eloquent, but I keep hearing, the same as my husband, I keep hearing plus signs. I don't hear any minus signs at all. And I just heard you say that eventually it's going to reduce it. And then you just said just now that 2 or 3 years ago you reduced it. I have my numbers here for the last 3 years. There is no reduction on my bill. None. My bill has continuously gone up in the 7 years I've lived here, and I keep hearing that, oh, it's going to eventually reduce. And all I hear is you guys trying to get us to pay more taxes on this or this and more bonds and more issues, and I get that we need repairs. But you just said that our software is 20 years old. Our software is 20 years old. Our pipes are really old. We have no water system of our own. I just want to know how Raymore is newer than Belton, how they get such a between the 3 communities around here, Grandview, Raymore, and Belton, Raymore pays a lot less than everybody else. We pay more than those 3 communities based on the numbers that people have been telling, based on me speaking with other residents. We pay more than everybody else. I will tell you, we lived in St. Louis for a long, long time. We didn't pay near the amount that we pay in 1 month than we paid in 3 months in St. Louis. Why is it that we can't have a system that works and we have to keep replacing pipes that we're saying are going to be replaced and they're never replaced? Why in however many years have they not been replaced? I see construction crews all the time in our neighborhoods replacing pipes, replacing things. I don't remember a bond about that. Why are those pipes being replaced? Why are we continually paying out of our own pockets? 24%, it looks like, about is going to be the raise on the water and the sewer combined. My husband gets a 3% raise maybe once a year. Works 3 jobs. I work full-time. I can't afford for my taxes and for my water and my sewer and my electric and everything to keep going up with like this. I can't live in a community where I can't afford to live anymore. If that continues to go up, you're going to lose citizens that want to be here. You're going to lose those good citizens because they don't want to take it anymore. They don't want to pay those prices. So my question is I don't want to hear what you're going to do to make it better. I want to hear how you're going to reduce our costs. But not in 10 years.
Anybody going to take this one?
We have been replacing water lines over the past several years since I've been here. We've been dedicating $400,000 each year. Water line replacement is extremely expensive. We're looking at about replacing 26 miles of, I think that's correct, 26 miles of cast iron pipe, and we're looking at over more than $26 million to replace it in today's dollars.
That's 26 miles of line, but that doesn't include the other 80 miles of line that we've already replaced. And so when you're seeing that work being done, that work is replacing existing line. It's just that as the $400,000 that the council in 2012 agreed to be able to apply towards infrastructure is no longer enough to continue to replace the line at the capacity that we were doing.
But if we're always replacing line, when is the increases going to stop? I'm being told 5 years, but in 5 years, you're going to have more breakdown in other areas. My
Right.
neighborhood's not breaking down right now.
So the PVC, the new material that is available now is PVC, and it has a much longer useful life than the cast iron that was available in the 1950s when we first when we first started putting in infrastructure. And so when you look at the city of Raymore, they're able to use PVC pipe that was available as their population was growing more recently than the city of Belton's. Our population has pretty much stayed the same since 1990. And so a lot of our infrastructure is that older cast iron pipe that needs to be replaced.
That doesn't really answer my question. I don't think it answers anybody's questions in this community that our prices are just going to keep going up. That's what I'm hearing. I don't hear an actual answer to that question.
Once we get the water line replaced, the cast iron water line replaced that is aging out, and we are able to replace it with newer material PVC pipe, then you're looking at a 100-year lifespan. So rates can be reduced because there's not going to be an emergency. You can plan over the 100 years to collect those fees and save the money to do replacement as that pipe is aging out. Right now we just have all of this pipe that is aging out at the same time, and if we don't start acting now, we might end up in a situation where we have to turn off the water because we have water main breaks all over town as the infrastructure continues crumbling.
We have to turn off the water. This is my last statement, but we have to turn off the water anyway because we can't afford it. I'm not saying I can't afford it. I'm saying there are citizens here that cannot afford the water. You can only go a month without paying your bill before it's turned off. And if you're late one day, you get charged $30. That's nothing. People have a hard time catching up with this. It's already too expensive. That's the last thing I'm going to say.
And I would like to just take this time to encourage anyone that has a question to go over that wants to look at their water usage. The new water meters that we are replacing the old ones with, they have the ability to actually take a reading every hour. And so we've had citizens who have called to say, my water bill is so high, it just keeps increasing. And what we've been able to do with those water meters is we can go and download the information, an hourly reading, and the homeowner or the resident, the water customer, needs to keep a log of how they're using that water. But what we found for one citizen, it was her showers in the morning. They replaced their shower head with a low water usage shower head, and they cut their water bill considerably. And also the issue was that she had a washing machine and she was doing a lot of laundry, and one that was not low water usage. And so when she was doing her laundry, laundry takes a lot of water, especially the old-fashioned washing machines, because it fills up, it does the wash cycle, and then it fills up 2 or 3 more times to do the rinsing. And you're looking at 40 gallons each time it fills up. And so we were able to use the new technology with our water meters and her keeping a log of what she was doing, what activities when she was using water, and we were able to reduce her water bill. And so I would encourage anyone that is concerned because they see their water bill increasing, and we bill based on consumption. So on your bill, you can actually see how much water and how much sewer that you are being billed for. The other issue that people have is they will sign up for the winter average method of sewer billing. The winter average method of sewer billing might not be most beneficial for you. You end up paying a higher rate for your sewer than you do on the volume method. And the only way that is going to benefit you is if you have an outdoor swimming pool, or if you do a lot of watering in the summer months. And what happens is every year we recalculate your winter average based on your water usage that you use during the winter months, December, January, and February. We take that average, and then you pay that amount for your sewer, that volume for your sewer during the summer months, and actually all year round unless you request to be taken off. And we have a lot of citizens who selected that winter average method of sewer billing. And so if they had a leak in one of those winter months, they will be paying, maybe they only are using 5,000 gallons of water, but they're paying for 7,200 gallons of sewer at a higher rate. And so citizens, customers need to actually review their bills, call us and ask us to help walk you through it. We're more than happy to spend our time educating and helping you understand your water bills, so that you can do what's best in your own personal situation. And I would encourage the Furmans to call me tomorrow and I can help them look at their water bill.
You called me out, so I'm going to actually address that. I actually have talked to the city several times about our water bill. And all I've gotten is I can't do anything for you.
Well, please call me tomorrow.
I have talked to Mayor Davis. I have messaged him directly about the attitude from the city employees about the water. This isn't something that is easy for us. It's hard to spend $450 on water in 1 month. And to be told by the city that I can't do anything. I don't need your help with the bill. I understand the bill because I've studied it. I've looked at the usage. I have a spreadsheet here on the usage. I have my billing statements. I pay my bill every month. It hurts sometimes to pay $450 and have no money for groceries. No money for groceries. And I'm not the only one in this community that has that problem.
Because I saw the news story last night, I looked at your bill this morning to see if I could help you, and you're on the winter average method.
I've never signed up for that. And when you said that, I shook my head no. I don't even know where there's a spot to sign up for that on that crappy website. It takes me 10, 15 minutes just to figure out how to find the button to pay my bill. There's no way to automatically do it. There's no way to set it up. Everything else I have set up for auto pay, and I always have to make sure that I pay my bill on, the 8th, the 9th of every month, whatever, 6th maybe, I think it is, of every month. Because if I don't, I'm going to get hit with a late fee on my water, my sewage, and my trash. A late fee for each single one. And that averages out to be about $30 to $40 every time. So I make sure that that bill is consistently paid on the due date, no matter how much cash I have left after that.
Ms. Furman, I understand how stressful this is, but I think what Ms. Ernsten is saying is that if you would please call her tomorrow, we believe that we can be of assistance to you. And if not, then I wish you the best. But
Okay,
we
that's
just wanna
fine, but
help.
I've signed the petition along with a lot of other people, so.
I did come by your house today, and I thought it was on the other side by the park, and I forgot that it's over, the next road over. I thought it was abutting the ball fields. And so I went over, and it's tough. You know, I wouldn't like it either, but the thing is that the staff here that we're talking about mostly here have only been here for 2 years. And they've inherited an abundance
Right.
of things that they're trying to figure out, why are we in this kind of a situation? And it's been their responsibility to take on this task. And again, I said this last week, nobody wants to pay more for water. We don't have our own water source. That is a major problem that we don't have. And we're at the mercy of who gives us service at a lot of that. I do believe that the council and the staff will do, and I know that I give them calls all the time that I get. I push them on to them and say, fix it, see what you can do. And they're tireless about doing it. Now, they've done a good job. We're making headway. But I got to tell you that it's going to be tough. It is not going to be easy. And we have three options. Councilwoman Peak, we were talking about that the other day. What were our three options as a council?
To do the pay-as-you-go, make it a little bit easier, borrow the money, and everyone would automatically have a $25 to $30 increase, I believe was an amount, or not do anything, and we could end up with water shut off, a Flint, Michigan type thing. I mean, it would not be a good situation.
And I wish everybody could have seen some of the tape that we've done and watched the programs, what the water pipes look. And we have citizens that are complaining that the water is yellow. And that's scary. And I know our staff is concerned. So do we turn our head like previous administrations have done forever? Or do we go ahead and do something about it? It's not a good situation right now. Yes, ma'am.
So I just kind of wanted to address some of the frustration. I mean, we're frustrated also. I feel like we've been put between a rock and a hard place because what do? You don't want to do nothing like previous administrations have and just ignore the needs of the city. But I think also the frustration I feel is when you ask a question like, so when is it going to stop? When are the increases going to stop? And really the answer from my perspective is I don't know. I can't speak for anybody else up here, but we have to start somewhere, at least that's how I feel. And we have to make some kind of headway on this stuff because it's not going to get any better. And this is coming from somebody who's just spent $16,000 to replace a sewer pipe in my yard. So when it comes to the frustrations, like I feel it. I felt it real hard in my pocketbook just last month. And I had sewage in my basement. So while that's not a water pipe, I just want to at least personally feel like when somebody asks me, when is it going to stop? The answer from me anyway is we don't know. And I feel like that's the most honest answer. We can budget for 5 years or we can do this for 5 years and see how much progress we can make. But ultimately, 5 years from now, I assume, if I'm not here, the administration then would have to kind of reevaluate, okay, well, how much progress were we able to make? What's the situation right now? So I just wanted to feel like at least, like I felt like I needed to address that point with you. So I'll keep my mouth shut now.
Sir, name, address.
I'm gonna speak,
One
Excuse
second,
me.
please.
and I'll give you time in a minute. Sheila, you mentioned the cast iron pipe replacement, which you didn't mention, and it does have to do with expense and saving eventually. But you didn't mention the asbestos. Right now we have to suit up and do that very specially, and that's also in the works to get replaced. That will eventually cut expenses, but again, eventually is a while down the road. We did also we were proactive, as in, I've heard 12, I know I was involved in it. When we worked, I'll say that the staff and the council and myself, I worked inside very hard to push as much money, which wound up being the $400,000, and we have seen to it that has gone to replacement. That's where it's gone. We've also been proactive with that $400,000, recognizing that was explained a couple of weeks ago as well, that we can get more done with double that. So we'd wait a year in order to get the volume up, so we'd get the prices down per foot. So we've been working proactive. Can we do better? Of course, we always need to not go to sleep. But I just wanted to bring that up. And then, Mayor, you brought the fact too, as I was going to bring up on this, but besides this cast iron busting, we're down to, some of it is 50% flow. I've seen I've seen some of that. Some of it's 50% flow. When it gets that bad, besides the flow, it has no, there's no structure left of that pipe. It blows apart. And I think Councilwoman Davidson was very clear, and we don't know, but we know it's broke, and if we don't continue to move forward, we're not going to have water. Is there one way better than another? I'm not sure. We're open. I'm always open to suggestion, whether you go bond, whether you go some other version. But I think then, in the respect to the increase of what is it we're proposing besides the 400,000 we're including for actual construction? Is 8%?
Well, we're looking at 10% this year.
10%.
And then 8% the next 2 years.
Well, I think, again, I want to be clear about that 10% and 8%. We need to look at it, at least I need to look at it if I'm doing my job up here, to see if in fact we're getting production and don't have to increase that 8. I understand the need, the desire. We have to look at that every year. To me, that's not concreted in. To me, the 10% would be if we go ahead and pass. And see where we're going with this thing and how we're building. I realize why the 8 and 10 is necessary. It's because we know about how much money it's going to take. And the sooner we get it done, the more apt to be in the price structure that it is today instead of 10 years down the road, which is going to be another 30, 40, 50% based on what's kind of happening. It's a guess. I don't know. So I just want to point that out.
You're up.
Robert Powell, 802 Main Street. I think we're all impressed with how expensive this is, and I've in the last month or two talked to maybe 300 residents just here in the old town and family members and whatnot, and I'd say 90% of them reflect the concerns of the woman who's been complaining about her high water bills. There are high water bills, and high to me may not be high to them, but I think the key for a lot of us is transparency. A lot of the times we get raises from Kansas City or whoever's supplying our water in the past, and then something else is tacked on, and it's been a mystery to us as to what that's going for. And so I think this time, everybody said that extra 10% is for maintenance, for repairs, et cetera. Okay, that's a step towards transparency. But then again, we saw that the Blue Valley, which only, I'll just say for sake of argument, covers half of our system, they increased 12.5%. So you'd think, all right, the whole town is going to pay 6.25%, but no, it's 12.5%. But I didn't see anything in the budget about that. It took Mr. Clark even to ask about it, so the average citizen isn't going to know either exactly what's going on. So this isn't a question, it's just a comment. A lot of the concern of the citizens, the immediate concern is when they open up their water bills, but the ongoing concern is transparency. And I know that maybe we have to, and I hate to say it, hire even more people to work the books, but we do need, as in this case, the city council and the staff to be telling us exactly what our money is going for.
Thank you.
My name's Andrea Coda, 16314 Harris Avenue. So I understand 16314 Harris Avenue. So I understand, excuse me, with the 12.5% increase with Little Blue Valley, but learning today for the first time that half of the city, their water is actually treated by the city. I think it'd be important to give us more transparency why everyone's getting the 12.5% increase. I get that all residents pay the same in regards to that, but at the same time, can you show us why our infrastructure then is needing that 12.5 increase as well? In regards to the increases as well, I also keep my bills. I've had them since we've moved in 2016. With the decrease that you stated, I also have never seen a decrease in my water bill in regards to that. And then I think the hardest thing for me right now is with the increases, I understand like our infrastructure like obviously needs to be replaced and it needs help. I'm struggling to get on board with all of this though, because I feel like there's very little transparency as far as what specifically all the funding is going for. So if we could even see a breakdown of X amount of salaries and X amount of this, I think, and if it were easier to find that information, I think I would have a better idea in regards to that. But I don't know if anyone can answer then with the 12.5 increase due to the sewer, why all the residents would still be paying the same. So we're using that money to reduce I&I. So I&I is inflow and infiltration. So what happens is whenever there's a rainwater, a rain event, the water that happens during that storm gets into our sanitary sewer system and basically increases completely fills to capacity the sewer lines. And that water then travels to either Little Blue or to our own sewer treatment plant. And both Little Blue and the City of Belton sewer treatment plants, they have a maximum capacity of sewer that can be treated per day. And that additional rainwater that is coming in is making it so that it's. So my question to you with that though, is our Prop S and Prop R not already covering some of those issues? Because that's dealing with stormwater infiltration, right? Well, I mean, it's fixing our sewer lines, so is that not gonna help aid in fixing the I&I, or is that So how? the Prop S and the Prop R was I know roads it's and separate. Prop.
I understand that's separate.
Well, Prop S it was stormwater.
Stormwater.
Okay, stormwater sewers are different than sanitary sewer. So the stormwater
So
sewers.
there's stormwater infiltrating our sanitary sewers then, is what you're saying?
Yes. So, but the bonds that were voted on and approved by voters, those bonds.
Those fixes won't in any way reroute stormwater to help aid in fixing that, I guess is what I'm asking.
No,
Okay.
no.
There's some clarification there. Now, the pay-as-you-go method, if you look at it as well now, so you're proposing a 10% increase in April of this year. So I'm assuming then the 8% increase next year would be on my already increased bill.
Yes.
And then the 8% increase would then also be on my following year's bill.
Yes.
Then the 6% on the total of that following bill.
Yes.
So if you do the math, that pay-as-you-go method in that 5-year span would actually cost me more than if I paid, like if you borrowed the money and I paid a flat $30 now. It's gonna be almost, doing the math now on my bill with those increases over time, because it's being based off of your new bottom balance or your new base balance, I'm actually finding that essentially at the end of 5 years, if I'm doing my math correctly, I'm actually gonna be paying almost $30 more in the long run than if there was just something put into place now where it's only a $30 increase.
So your bill right now is made up of two different components. So it's made up of the debt service charge. The increase is not being applied to that debt service charge.
Just the usage.
Just the usage.
But I guess what I'm saying is my usage right now, 10% on that, whatever that new grand total is, then you're gonna do, it's compounding, I guess is what I'm saying, each year.
Yes.
So essentially, 10% on 120 now is less than what 10% on $140
will be next year. You understand what I'm saying,
I do
right?
understand. I did the calculations though, and if you're applying it only to the usage, it actually, you might get up to the $25, but you'll be paying it several years down the road, not starting from day one, and that we would have to for the debt service, to repay the debt service if we did a bond issue. So while it might at some point reach that $25, it's not going to be reaching it immediately, like
But I
from
guess what
day
I'm
one.
saying is that base amount on my water usage, 10% of that today is X amount. 10% of that next year is based on that new amount.
Yes, we're trying to generate enough money to rapidly start replacing that infrastructure before we're in a situation where we don't have a choice.
No, and I understand that, but I guess what I'm saying is because it's compounding each year, like the base amount that new percentage is getting applied to is increasing each year. Therefore, the increase over 5 years is much greater than if I were to just get a flat increase now. Does that make sense? Because you guys said just a few moments ago that you were exploring the different ways to pay for this.
It does make sense, and I'm telling you that your bill at the end of 5 years might end up becoming the $25. Yes. But instead of paying it from day one, where you're paying $25 for these last
Well,
4
it
years,
looks like at
you
this
would,
rate, my bill will absolutely, for sure, be at least that at the end of 5 years. I think what would be really nice in this situation right now is just seeing, like I said before, and like another gentleman mentioned before, is more transparency on what our dollars are actually paying for.
have you looked at our budget yet?
I will gladly pull it up if there is an easy, convenient way to find it.
Our budget is
But have you
very-
guys gotten estimates yet on what the cost to do this work that is going, like, what is it going to be? Can you tell us?
Right, in today's dollars, it's $1.36 million over the next 20 years.
And that's for the remaining 30 some odd, roughly 30 miles of piping that needs to be replaced?
Yes, and I would encourage, if you guys are, we did a presentation, the December meeting, there was a presentation, a very detailed one, that was done in a work session. It's online, the video is online. Pull that up, and it had so much
Where
information.
do I need to go to find this information?
On our website.
I
looked at it today again. If you go to Belton's website, so Belton, was it belton.org? And then on the left-hand side, there's actually a videos category. You just click on that, and it'll take you to the latest session, but then there's an option to go back into earlier sessions. So if you just go to December and then you pull it up, and at 12:45, I believe, is the exact time when Don starts making his presentation.
Okay. And then, I guess my only other thing is, I moved here in 2016, and as a mother of two small children, a stay-at-home mom, my husband works full-time, with the increases, it's not feasible for everyone to go out and spend $1,500 on a new washer and dryer unit. So those might be excellent recommendations to people here, but not everyone can afford to go and make those changes to put in low water usage everything, shower heads, whatever. I mean, and I've done that. We've put restrictors on our faucets. We do have a low water usage washer and dryer. We've changed our shower heads, and even that doesn't make enough of an impact that we're not feeling the burden of this bill continually rising. And believe me, I voted yes on the other propositions that needed to happen because I'm a strong believer of we're not going to grow without fixing our infrastructure. But I just feel like there's got to be a way that we're not going to feel the burn as bad as we do, because it's difficult. But I will definitely pull up those previous videos and look into that.
And also, our budgets are on our website also, under the finance department. You can see both our annual audited financial statements, including the water and wastewater funds, and you can also look at our budgets.
And then the audits that you guys currently have, are those done by like an independent,
Yes.
and you guys hire them?
Uh,
Or who?
Trout Beeman and Company is an independent certified public accounting firm.
Okay.
Thank you.
I know I've been up, I just have one more question.
Quickly.
It disturbed me when I heard that we've not grown since the 90s, but everyone else around us has grown. So that's one of our problems is that our tax base isn't growing, and so we don't have the money like we could have if we had grown like Raymore or even Grandview's grown. So what is the vision, other than adding a couple restaurants here and there, to grow Belton to where we can become a thriving community again, instead of dying?
Well, in all actuality, sir, we are actually a thriving community. We have our growth has been,
When they say we're not
Excuse me, let her finish.
our population has a slow but steady increase, and we are seeing increased numbers of housing permits to build new homes here. In addition, the other part of bringing people to this community is through workforce. And as many of you know, the Southview Golf Course is now at the Commerce Center. With those buildings going up, they will bring large numbers of jobs to the area, which will bring people to this area, which will support the retail that's in the area, the food industry that's in the area, and hope to grow the population not only by jobs, but also by those people that will want to live closer to where they work and will want to build. In the month of January alone, I believe we had 46
Permits.
housing permits. Dave, do you recall that number?
I don't recall the exact number, but it was a record month for single-family permits in
Right.
February, yes, or January.
Right. So many of those areas are growing through economic development.
Okay. Anyone else?
James Pryan, 1007 Red Court. Red, R-E-D. P-R-Y-A-N. Thanks. Does any of our water bill end up in the general fund? You were very specific to say it goes to certain places, but our total water bill, does any of that end up in the general fund?
No.
Interesting. Last year, did the city give away a fire hydrant to a private citizen to install it for a for-profit business?
All,
And if so, who authorized that?
all fire hydrants are the city's infrastructure.
Correct, but I was told it was given to a private citizen for a for-profit business at a
The-
cost of about $5,000.
The fire hydrant was installed in it's public infrastructure. It belongs to the city. It was not given to a private business.
Can I add in on that one? That was the one that the school district wanted that fire hydrant also? Am I missing something there?
Yes, that was a public-private partnership where additional hydrant was needed to add to the development and safety in that area. Worked with the fire department as to the best placement of that, and the person that put in our equipment paid for the labor to put that in. That provided protection to that community as well as the school building that was in that area.
Anyone else? Okay. At this point, I'd like to call the work session to order. And at this time, I'd like to take a break.
Thank you.
All right, we're calling the work session to order. Items for review and discussion. That would be you. Have you not talked enough tonight? Go ahead.
Well, tonight we're going to be discussing the special revenue fund budgets, all except for the TIF funds because we discussed those at the last work session. So if you want to turn to page 30 in your budget book, We are going to start with the park fund tonight. And the funding for the park fund is provided by a property tax, user fees, and a $350,000 transfer from the park sales tax fund. And all of this money is restricted to be used only on parks and park facilities in the city. If you turn to page 31, you can see the revenues detailed beginning on page 31. And the only changes for revenues, and what I'm going to do tonight is I'm going to highlight the changes from last year's budget to this year, the proposed budget, and please ask any questions that you might have if something else comes up. So the revenues are a little bit different this year because they include a $1 a month increase for family and corporate memberships and a $5 a week increase in summer camp fees. And those are the only changes in revenues. And then in administration, if you turn to page 33, park administration budget includes a one-step increase for all eligible employees on their anniversary date, and it includes an increase in the cost of employee benefits due to increased health insurance premiums and an anticipated increase in workers' comp rates, and also loggers. There is an increase in the public information line item to marketing, for marketing that is going to be related to the Wellness Center's 20-year anniversary celebration. And so other than that, it's very status quo and the same as last year. If you turn to page 34, this is the park maintenance budget. And for all of the funds that have employees tonight, there's going to be an increase in our salaries and benefits expense due to the one-step increase for eligible employees and the increase in health insurance premiums, retirement costs, and workers' comp rates. In addition, the maintenance budget has added a full-time athletic field supervisor position, and then park and also our golf fund have a unique situation. The state's minimum wage rate is increasing, and that is impacting our part-time wages.
Is that Andy Reid hiding? That's what I said.
We're getting him at a discount.
Wow. Okay.
If you turn to page 36, this is the outdoor water park. You'll see a decrease in temporary salaries and a large increase in contractual. And this is because lifeguarding will now be done by Midwest Pool Management, and that impacts the temporary salaries line item and the contractual line item. So that's the change in that. Concessions and admissions part-time wages are still being budgeted in the temporary salaries line item, and so that's why you still see a little bit of temporary salary, a number in there.
That's probably for Brian. You just doing the outdoor with the contractual, not the indoor, or you're doing both? Both, okay.
If you turn to page 37, this is the 37 and 38 are the recreation budget. The concession line item includes $8,000 for an air fryer convection oven. I'm actually going to move that out of that line item and put it in a capital outlay. It meets the capital outlay definition. It has a useful life of more than a year, and it costs over $5,000. So when we do the final budget, I will have reduced $8,000 from that line item and put it down under the capital and assigned it a project number. And if you turn to pages 39 and 40, this is the High Blue Wellness Center budget. And in addition to the increase for full-time employees and benefits, this temporary line item is also affected by that state minimum wage increase. And then on page 41, you can see the indoor aquatic center. And again, you'll see a difference in the salaries line items and also the contractual, because Midwest Pool Management is going to be taking care of the lifeguarding. Any questions about anything on the
My
parks
question
budget?
is contractually, without putting the numbers together, it looks like it's about a wash. Is that correct between benefits and salaries? I see they're charging you $317,000, and last year you had a budget of $283,000 and $55,000, so I guess you have a little bit of savings there for.
Terry Ward, Park Board President. Good evening, Council, Mayor Davis. To answer your question, Dave, the budget amount that's in there is if the pool is open every single day. In other words, it's the highest amount. We all know that we get inclement weather, especially in the outdoor pool, we have to shut down. So that's the highest it would be. Pretty much it's going to be a wash between the two. If we happen to get every single day is swimmable and the pools are full, at that point, it would probably be about 25,000 more overall. But the
Okay.
issue's been, it's, pardon? Yes, definitely. It's not just the High Blue Wellness Center, it's industry-wide. You cannot retain lifeguards. I mean, you bring them in, you train them, and after 3 months, they're gone. And then, of course, with minimum wage raising every year, it just makes more sense. We're actually, at one point, we had to shut down some amenities because we didn't have enough lifeguards. And, you know, you just have to shut them down because safety's number one, so.
Okay, you might want to stand around anymore, or sit down anyway, Terry. Go ahead.
And if you turn to page 42, this is the special events part of the park. And the only difference is this department was also impacted by the state minimum wage rate. And those are really the only changes that the parks made this year.
Questions on this side, anybody? Over here? Thanks. Park's doing a good job.
Okay, if you would like to turn to page 44, this is the Street Impact Fee Fund. And funding in the Street Impact Fee Fund is provided by fees that are assessed on new construction based on the impact that each project will have on the city's road infrastructure. These revenues can only be used to increase the city's street infrastructure, so it can't be used to replace infrastructure that's already there. It actually has to increase our miles of road and our transportation miles. So there, typically we don't pay expenses out of this fund, and you can see we typically will do a transfer into one of the capital project funds, and there's nothing budgeted for next year. No transfers budgeted. Any questions about this fund? If not, if you turn the page to page 45, this is the Hotel Motel Tax Fund. Funding is provided by the hotel motel tax that is restricted to be used only on economic development. Revenues are projected to include a full year of the Fairfield Inn being open. That's the change in our revenue line item. And then the expenditure budget, it includes a one-step increase for all eligible employees on their anniversary date and includes an increase in the cost of the employee benefits. Additionally, it includes an addition of a full-time economic development and communications specialist that has been added to the proposed budget to assist with economic development initiatives, website, and communications. This year's hotel motel tax fund budget also includes a $100,000 for capital outlay for site diligence, preparation, and acquisition to help attract businesses that will create primary jobs. Any questions about this fund's budget?
Seeing none.
Okay, if you will turn the page to page 47, this is a summary of the street fund, and funding for the street fund is provided by a half-cent local sales tax, state motor vehicle taxes, and county and road district taxes, and all of this money is restricted to be used on streets and storm sewers in the city. So not the sanitary sewer system, but storm sewers. And if you will, there really are no differences in anything that we're doing for revenues. And then on page 49, you can see this is where we start the expenditure budget. And again, a one-step increase has been put in for all eligible employees on their anniversary date, and the increase in employee benefits. Also, as a result of the pay study survey that was done, the street maintenance worker position will be increased to a salary scale grade 26 from grade 25. This will not add any cost to the budget. It's just simply increasing it a grade, and they will have an additional year before they top out for their step increases. And on page 51 is the capital outlay budget. And you can see that there is $1.6 million that has been set aside for capital being funded from street funds. $200,000 of that $1.6 million is for a future new public works operations building. There's $250,000 being budgeted for street preservation. $300,000 for stormwater preservation, $16,000 for regulatory street signs, $520,000 for vehicle replacement in future years, and $117,750 for vehicles to be replaced in fiscal year 21, and also $172,900 for equipment purchases. Does anyone have any questions about anything in the street fund?
Seeing none.
Okay, if you will turn the page to page 52, this is the Markey Parkway Regional Detention Fund. The revenues in this fund are collected from fees that are paid by developers within the watershed of the Markey Parkway Regional Detention Facility. And these fees are restricted for construction and maintenance of the regional detention area, and there are no projects budgeted in fiscal year 2021.
Sir.
Just for my record, where's the Markey Park Regional Detention Area? Markey Parkway, is that like, is that Mullen or is that Markey Parkway? Because it's supposed to come all the way through eventually someday.
It's Markey Parkway, and it's kind of.
Is that like
Do you know where the
Academy and all that street? Is that where we're talking here?
It's on the other side, so it's south of 163rd Street or Y.
Menards area, okay.
We call it Coles Pond.
Any other questions? Okay, if you will turn the page to page 53, this is the Capital Improvement Sales Tax Fund. And the funding for this fund is provided by a half-cent sales tax that expires December 31st, 2028, and it is restricted to be used only for capital items. The fiscal year 2021 budget includes funds to make principal and interest payments on debt that paid for improvements to the police station, court, and annex buildings. It also paid for the Highway Y and 71 interchange. It also paid for energy efficient improvements made throughout city facilities and fire and emergency management vehicles and equipment. So in addition to those principal and interest payments, there is the very top line under expenditures is a transfer of $700,000 to the general fund. That is being budgeted to pay for a new financial accounting, utility billing, payroll, community development, and enterprise resource planning ERP software solution to replace Naviline. And that is the software system that the city purchased in 1998 or 1999 to prepare for Y2K, and that is the software that we are currently using. And so this new software, we would purchase one that would improve efficiency not only for staff but also for citizens.
Councilman Trutzel.
On this new software, since the compatibility is always an issue, is this going to be a problem for us when we switch over?
No, it would not be a problem with compatibility. We would basically actually be integrating additional departments so that the park department wouldn't be integrated and the court system wouldn't be integrated, but all of the other departments would be integrated into one place. So the awesome thing about it is that citizens could log on and they could see if they owed a business license. They could also see if they had a water bill, if they had an abatement that they owed money for, and they can log in one place and everything is consolidated all in one place for them.
You're not going to guarantee we're not going to have problems?
I can
I won't put you on the spot. No,
I can tell you that that we've had a demonstration. This software has been competitively bid through a cooperative agreement that the city would piggyback onto to make sure that we were getting the lowest price possible. And we've done a lot of talking to other customers who have actually converted from the exact software system that we are using right now. It's not going to be a fast process. It's going to take a lot of staff time to get the data converted. We probably won't be able to, we have 20 years of history plus in Naviline. We will only be able to go back 3 to 5 years and only convert 3 to 5 years of data. So right now, we can go back and look at a lot of history. We will not be converting that much data over to the new one.
I appreciate that you've looked and checked into it. The compatibility is always an issue, so I feel a little better. Thank you.
Yes.
Woman Davidson.
I do want to make sure, the gentleman that was here earlier had a great point, and I am like this as well. I really don't open paper bills because everything is just like auto pay. Whatever. So I want to make sure that we have that capability. And then also the second part of that is we do a lot of communications actually through our water bill that are not water bill related, just city related activities and events. So if there's a way that, if somebody's logging into their account, they can be, there may be a message board or something, I'm not sure, that has that same sort of message. If they were to log in, usually when you're auto pay, I'm not even logging in. Until I get a letter from the city saying that you haven't paid your water bill, which happened to me in November. That was embarrassing, but I had been kicked out of the rolls of auto pay for some reason after 3 years. They kicked me out, and then we couldn't get re-enrolled, and then they were on a goose chase with this current provider of how do we get, I just want to pay, how do I take my money? And it was a nightmare, but I was glad to know that we were actually looking into new software for finally.
Yes.
Other questions so far? Go ahead.
I'm done with the capital improvement sales tax fund unless anyone has another question. No? Okay, if you turn the page to page 54, this is the park sales tax fund, and funding is provided by a half-cent sales tax and is restricted to be used on parks and park facilities in the city. And so the park sales tax fund is making the principal and interest payments on the community center facilities, including the indoor pool, and it provides $350,000 of funding for park operating expenses. Any questions about the park sales tax fund? If not, please turn to page 55. This is the mayor's Christmas tree fund, and the revenues in this fund are donations that the mayor receives from individuals and private companies for the benefit of the Belton Welfare Association. And the money that comes in just gets paid out to the Belton Welfare Association.
How much was paid out this year?
$18,030.
15,000?
$18,030.
Well, you lowered his budget. I think you ought to raise it.
We had $3,005 that was the donations. So we've been paying the night of the mayor's Christmas tree, presenting the check, and there are donations that come in after that. And so the $3,005 of donations that came in after that were paid this year. So. Any other questions about that fund? If not, please turn to page 56. This is the drug seizure fund, and the revenues in this fund are a result of property and cash that is seized during the course of investigations in drug cases after the defendant has been convicted. The funds collected can only be used for law enforcement purposes, and they cannot be used to replace or fund continuing operating expenses. And nothing has been budgeted to be paid out of this fund in fiscal year 2021. Any questions?
Councilman Tressel.
Actually, this is that for the chief. With legalized or marijuana, how's this going to impact this at all as far as it won't?
It'll have minimal, if any, impact whatsoever, so.
Thank you.
If you turn to page 57, this is the DWI Recovery Fund. The revenues in this fund are from fines and recoupment of costs collected from cases involving DWI and drunk driving related traffic accidents. And these revenues can only be used for law enforcement expenses related to enforcing DWI laws. No funds have been budgeted for fiscal year 2021. Any questions?
Chief, I saw some staggering information that we have one legislator is trying to do away with DWI. We already have lost our ability to do the checks. Where are we? What's our status?
We haven't lost the ability to do those. However, the state no longer funds those. So there are very few, if any, police departments that do DWI checkpoints anymore. DWI checkpoints were not generating very many DWI arrests, actually, anyway. It was good public relations. It served a point in the very beginning of those DWI checkpoints. However, as the public became more aware of those, the number of drunk drivers that would go through those went down dramatically. We actually, because of DWI enforcement, have seen fewer DWIs over the years. This fee is based on a formula for the recovery of costs. We do not have as many DWIs as what we had at one time. However, we do still, the court orders the DWI recovery fee or DWI recoupment fee on any DWIs that we have. We did not specifically identify any expenses coming out of this. However, when we did the budget and when we had our budget meetings, if there is a need that comes up during the course of the year, there will be funds that will be available through both drug seizure and DWI that may be used for those special things that may come up during the year, but we did not specifically budget items to come out of there at this time.
I've gotten all kinds of hits from mad mothers against drunk driving, and they're really concerned, arguably, you know, they're concerned about that it's getting put back on a back burner is what the concern is. Our data that we got this month on crime and everything, we had 3 drunk drivers, I think, last month.
Yeah, the state still funds DWI enforcement programs. They just transferred the money that would have been spent on sobriety checkpoints to other forms of enforcement. It may be Wolfpack, it may be directed patrol, it may be other things that they are funding. They just are not funding the DWI checkpoints. There's been quite a bit of concern over the years over Fourth Amendment rights and whether or not they were constitutional because of the possible seizure and the record keeping that had to go along with those to make sure that they were not targeted stops, but they were, you're either stopping every single car or you're stopping cars based on a formula, every 4th car, every 6th car, whatever that might be, so that by not funding them and by not doing them and concentrating enforcement efforts in other areas, it still allows for DWI enforcement, but just not for the checkpoints. They were not seen as wise uses of manpower and resources.
Thank you. Moving on.
If you'll turn to page 58, this is the special training fund, and the revenues budgeted in this fund are for court costs collected pursuant to state statute 488.5336. These funds can only be used for law enforcement officer training costs for post-certified officers. $10,000 has been budgeted for fiscal year 2021. The remaining budget for training comes from the general fund. Any questions on that? If not, you can skip past the TIF funds that we talked about last week, or at the last meeting, to page 64, the general obligation bond debt service fund. The funding in this fund is provided by taxes on real and personal property, and it's to repay the principal and interest on the debt that was approved by voters for stormwater improvements, road improvements, park improvements, and the 2006 fire safety projects, which included a second fire station. I need to, while I was preparing for this presentation, I realized that I added a couple of lines. I added the transfer to the street capital project and transfer to the stormwater project, and I did not have, it does not foot. The transfer to the stormwater project was not included in the formula, and I also hadn't included the new 2019 street and stormwater bond totals that are on page 65. That last row was not included in the total for total expenditures. I've corrected that. I actually have copies to give you all to put in your binder, but I just wanted to make you aware of that, and that will be fixed when we do the final budget.
And our bonding capacity, do we have any more GO capacity?
We do not. We did all of our, we have a very little tiny bit. Most of it was used for the stormwater and the street bonds.
Thank you. Questions?
Now, and that will change as we pay off other debt issues. Then we will have more capacity available in the future. Any questions about anything we talked about tonight? Because that is the end of our special revenue funds.
Seeing none. I'd like to adjourn the work session. Move on call regular meeting to order. Pledge of allegiance by Councilman Lathrop.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can we have the roll call, please?
Mayor Davis,
Here.
Councilman Member Savage,
Here.
Councilmember Lathrop,
Here.
Councilmember Trutzel,
Here.
Councilmember Van Winkle,
Here.
Councilmember Clark, Councilmember Finn, Councilmember Davidson, Councilmember Peak.
Here.
Okay, consent agenda. One motion, non-debatable, to approve the recommendations noted. Any member of the council may ask for an item be taken from the consent agenda for discussion and separate action.
Present. Second.
Motion and second, discussion. Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes. No personal appearances other than what we've already had. Ordinances, A, motion approving the final reading of bill number 2020-05.
An ordinance approving the final plat for Traditions Villas, first plat in the city of Belton, a tract of land located in the southwest one quarter of section 18-46 north, 32 west, in the city of Belton, Cass County, Missouri, and authorizing the mayor and city clerk to sign the plat for recording with the Cass County Recorder's Office.
Present. Second.
Motion is second, discussion. Seeing none.
Mayor Davis,
Aye.
Councilmember Savage,
Aye.
Davidson,
Aye.
Trutzel,
Aye.
Van Winkle,
Aye.
Lathrop,
Aye.
Peak,
Aye.
Clark.
That motion passes. B, a motion approving the first reading of bill number 2020-07.
An ordinance of the City of Belton, Missouri, amending Chapter 3, Alcoholic Beverages, Chapter 15, Offenses Involving Minors, and Appendix A, Schedule of Fees and Charges of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Belton, Missouri.
Present.
Second.
Motion is second, discussion. Councilwoman Davidson.
This might be a question for you, Patrick, but how does an establishment prove to the state that they are complying with the 50% food to alcohol?
So the 50% is not a state regulation anymore. That is a city regulation. I do believe your current code, and Andrea can correct me if I'm wrong because my computer died during the public hearing. But they are required to submit an affidavit that essentially they attest that they meet the 50-50.
Correct.
That's it.
Yes. If there's reason to suspect otherwise, it would be followed up upon.
Okay.
But yes, it's basically on their word.
Yeah, the license officer has the authority to audit their books if, for example, there's credible evidence that they did not meet the 50-50. But outside of that, the attestation is usually what most cities that have a 50-50 requirement use.
Interesting. Thank you.
Councilman Trutzel.
When I read the article, I was kind of curious because of what I know about Lee Summit, at least what I think I know about Lee Summit, I should say. There's no provision in this for having like a wine tasting out on the sidewalk in front of an establishment, is there?
You want to answer that?
There would be if they received a caterer's permit to extend past their licensed facility. If their licensed facility already included their patio, they could do the wine tasting there under their current licensure.
Would that be a entire year, or would that be by day kind of situation?
If they were required to get a caterer's permit, it would be by event.
The reason why I bring that up is that when I was out in Lee Summit visiting one day, they had a wine tasting company on the street there, and they had set out a section out there, and people were out there drinking wine, but it wasn't just a one-time deal. It was every day that the business was open. That's why I'm kind of thinking maybe we, at least in my opinion, might need to look at something to that effect is what I'm actually what the question is.
Yes.
Well, and I think Andrea touched on it pretty well. If the business was located in, say, downtown Lee Summit or downtown Belton, and their licensed premises included a portion of the sidewalk or the portion that they own of the sidewalk, then they could do a wine tasting every day.
Okay.
Because that is part of their licensed premises where they are authorized to sell intoxicating liquor or alcoholic beverages. If they did not, then they would need to come in and do it on a day-to-day basis via the caterer's permit.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Now I have another question. So regarding microbreweries, is it your understanding that this distinguishes between a microbrewery and a restaurant, or a microbrewery as a restaurant?
A microbrewery in and of itself would not qualify as a restaurant. The state recognizes the microbrewery license as a specific thing that you are doing on that premise.
So does this cut out the 50/50 in here? Because I didn't see that anywhere here. We're taking that out, or is that taken out based on this new ordinance?
It does not remove it. In section 3-24 of the ordinance, on page 67, because somebody else asked me that earlier today, it's still in there, the microbreweries, as well as other exceptions of the 50/50, which were already in the ordinance. They just have an exception now that they don't have to meet the 50/50 requirement.
They don't.
Correct.
Okay. The other question I had, it said it couldn't be within 100 feet of a school or a church, and for some reason I thought it used to be a little bit farther than that. Is that?
As far back as I saw in our previous, before we codified the code, and in our current code, it's been 100 feet. The state requires 100 feet. You can go up to 300 if you choose, but as far back as I saw, it was 100.
Okay, thank you.
That means you can't have one at the school district, you know, with the educational foundation, you can't do that in the building.
Right.
Okay, want to make sure you knew, okay. All right. Another question? Moving on, let's think here. No other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes. C, motion approving both readings of Bill number 2020-08.
An ordinance approving the reappropriation and revision of the City of Belton fiscal year 2020 adopted city budget for the purpose of replacing the golf course irrigation pump control system.
Present.
Motion and second, discussion. Seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes.
Second.
Motion and second for a second reading, discussion. Why are we doing a second reading?
Mayor, this is item has just gone out, and this is an emergency purchase. We're wanting to get this put together so that we're able to actually use the system to water our green space.
Could we make it a budget cut, Jay? Pardon me? What would be the effect if we didn't do the budget, if we didn't do the irrigation?
Well, the effect if you didn't replace the system is it wouldn't run.
Right.
So,
How about, how much water do we use there?
average ballpark year to year, probably in the 25 million gallon range.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Second reading now.
I'm just thinking how I want to do this. So, motion to approve the second reading of Bill number 2020-08.
An ordinance approving the reappropriation and revision of the City of Belton fiscal year 2020 adopted city budget for the purpose of replacing the golf course irrigation pump control system.
Second.
Motion is second, discussion. Councilman Clark.
My question is. Sheila, I went in looking for the rainy day fund and I couldn't find it, so I didn't know if you have that, like on what page that was, because I'm like going, I could never find a rainy day fund in here.
So in the ordinance that adopts the budget each year. The rainy day fund is the difference between the revenues and expenditures each year.
Okay, it just gave like a 409,000 number, so all I was looking for that number, so, okay, thank you.
Other questions?
It should be big, as much rain as we had last year.
Oh, my.
Just saying.
It's just the opposite.
Oh.
Any other discussion? Seeing none.
Mayor Davis,
Aye.
Councilmember Clark,
Aye.
Davidson. Aye. Lathrop,
Aye.
Van Winkle,
Aye.
Savage,
Aye.
Peak. Aye. Trutzel.
Aye.
Motion passes. Resolution, let's see, City Council Liaison, Park.
Join us for Boots and Bows. This is the annual daddy-daughter dance, and moms and sons are welcome to join as well. This is Saturday, February 22nd, Saturday, February 22nd, from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. at Memorial Station. Early bird is $40 per couple, 10 for each additional child registered through February 15th, which is this Saturday. Space is limited. After February 15th, the price increases to $50 per couple and 10 for each additional child. Let's see here. And here's your chance to bring Cass County history to life by helping us raise the roof on the Sloan Tribby log cabin. This historic cabin, dating back to the 1840s, was discovered in Cass County in 2015 with strong ties to Quantrill, the raid on Lawrence, the Burnt District, and General Order Number 11. The cabin was dismantled piece by piece with each part labeled and stored for reconstruction in Belton's Memorial Park. This event includes cocktails, music, dinner, silent auction, and live auction. There will even be an opportunity to sponsor a specific cabin log. Sponsorships are available, and individual tickets are $50. Tickets can be purchased at the High Blue Wellness Center. Sponsorship and project donations can be made on our website, which is, you can find that on their Facebook page. All proceeds benefit the Belton Friends of the Park Foundation Sloan Tribby Log Cabin Project. And then we're excited to bring back adult co-ed volleyball for ages 16 and up on Tuesday nights. Games will begin on Tuesday, March 17th at 7 p.m. at High Blue. It's a 6-week regular season followed by playoffs. Winners will receive league champion t-shirts. Players can register as individual and play on a house form team or register as a team with a max of 10 players. Fees, the early bird was only through February 1st, but you can still register February 2nd to March 1st. The team is $200 and the individual is $55. Late registration, March 2nd through 8th. The team is $225 and the individual is $65. And you can register at www.teamsideline.com/Belton.
You had me hanging there. Okay. Mayor's communication. 5 guys, we had ribbon cutting. I know Diane's back there. Chamber, it was a great turnout. They said that they have like 12 stores throughout the Kansas City area. They said that this was the best ribbon cutting they'd ever had. And it was a great crowd. It was spectacular, and they're doing really well. It's a pretty crazy place. Sloan Tribby tourism, that's important. That'll be a big deal. Tourism's a big part of economic development for us. I want to encourage everybody to try to come to that and help sell tickets if you can. Has Chamber sold any of those? Okay, they've done a good job then, because that's a big deal for our parks and as a draw. And they'll have history classes. I'm sure they'll go there and talk about how do we call it, the burnt district. So it's a big deal, and want to encourage everybody to try to go to that and get a good grasp on it. The Dare Golf Tournament, Chief, when's the Dare Tournament coming up? I got mine in the mail.
First week of June.
First week of June? Are you sponsoring that?
Typically.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. Dare, so the Dare Tournament's coming up, and everybody likes to play golf. It's a good tournament. We expect to have a good turnout. We got City Manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Wanted to let the council know that not on the agenda is the special work session that we are going to have next Wednesday, February 19th, where we will have representatives from Emergency Services Consulting International, ESCI. They were the firm that the 6 fire departments and districts looked at as a possible consolidation. They're going to be bringing their final report back to us. They are presenting to us on Wednesday, the 19th, and they are going to provide that same information to the city of Grandview that evening. Okay, thank you. So we will have them during the day. That was the only time they could get us. So our next meeting is February 19th at 1 p.m. That is a work session meeting with followed with an executive session. At current time, I have heard back from enough individuals that we barely have a quorum. So for those of you that have let us know you will be here, if that changes, let me know. And for those of you that have not replied, also please let me know. Then the other meetings for the rest of February are listed on the report here. And finally, saving the best for last, we have our new Public Works Director in the crowd with us this evening. Greg Rokos joined us a week ago Friday. And so he's just now got about a week under his belt. And I want to welcome him to the city of Belton. Has already jumped in up to his eyeballs and doing a phenomenal job. Today was at Mid-America Regional Council for...
It's Missouri STP priorities.
Perfect. So he's putting us on the map and making sure that we're staying there. So welcome, Greg. Appreciate that you're here. And Mr. Mayor, that's all I have for this evening.
How are you going to fix our traffic problems? Anyway, going on. And welcome. It'll be fun. Okay, other business? None? Amen. Okay. Motion to enter executive session, discuss matters pertaining to leasing, purchase, or sale of real estate according to Missouri State Statute 610-0212, and to discuss matters pertaining to legal actions according to Missouri State Statute 610-0211, and that the record be closed and the meeting adjourned from there.
Present.
We had a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
So roll call.
Roll call.
Indian giver, roll call, please.
Councilmember Trutzel.
Aye.
Van Winkle.
Aye.
Davidson. Lathrop.
Aye.
Mayor Davis.
Aye. And we are,
Councilmember Savage.
oh, you went out of order?
Aye.
Okay.
Peak. And Clark.
Did we miss anybody? We're adjourned. Thank you.